Hello, how are you today?
I'm great, how are you?
Doing all right.
Okay. My name is Anna Karras, and this is...
Kenneth Hardcastle.
And we are public services librarians here at the Naples Regional Library, coming to you with our Collier County Virtual Book Club. This month we are doing the 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle.
No relation, I'm sure.
No relation. No. None at all. At least not that he's telling me. So last week we posted some questions online, and this week we are going to do a little discussion between Kenneth and myself, and next week we're going to do a Zoom discussion with a bunch of you. So if you are interested in joining in on our Zoom discussion, all you have to do is email me, and I'll put a post up later today on Facebook telling you how to contact me so I can send you a link to the Zoom meeting, which will be next Friday at noon, which is what, the 28th, I believe?
29th.
29th? 29th, yes, thank you. Okay, so, Kenneth.
Yes.
What did we just read?
That's a great question. That's a great question. It was a very confusing book that kind of drops you into a world with mysterious rules where you don't know anything, and even once you do know something, it kind of skips a lot of details, and you start on the back foot, and you're always scrambling to catch up with whatever the author's putting in front of you.
This is true. Yes. I like to, I mentioned it to our videographer, Alex, earlier, that this was kind of an Agatha Christie on crack. It felt like, what happens in the beginning of the story is you it's told from the first person point of view, and you wake up in the body of a man who cannot remember who he is, why he's in the middle of the forest dressed in evening clothes, and what he's doing there. All he can remember is he needs to find Anna. No relation. And so we go from there. We piece together things as the narrator pieces things together, and he jumps bodies 8 times in order to solve the murder of Evelyn Hardcastle. And if he does solve the murder, he gets released back into his own body, we assume. We don't actually know for sure. But he gets released from Blackheath Manor?
Blackheath.
Blackheath Manor. It's not actually told what time period it is, but I sort of thought of it as somewhere between the 20s and the 40s, 1920s to 1940s. Would you agree with that?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just the way that they described the dress, and it was very kind of Downton Abbey-ish in its setting, great
Right.
big house, kind of crumbling.
Some of the characters had a history in the war. What war wasn't explicitly described.
Right, but they did describe that the Batman, and that was, I think, the Boer War, which would have been in the teens, the Boer War.
What was the first thing you said there?
The Batman?
Batman?
Yeah, the Lord Hardcastle, his butler was his Batman during the war, and that means basically he's the guy that stands behind you and hands you stuff while you fight.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
So, anyway, so let's talk about some of these questions that we posted last week. The first one is, what or who do you think are the deaths in the 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle? Where does the half death enter into the narrative? Do you have any opinions on that?
Well, I think one way that can be answered is that the character we come to know as Evelyn Hardcastle dies 7 times and sort of dies once.
Yes.
So I mean that's one possible way of understanding the title of the book, but it's also kind of deceptive. and it might be reaching into the history of the characters involved. When you find out, who Evelyn Hardcastle really is. So explaining what she might have experienced as deaths.
Truth.
Without going too much into spoilers for you.
Yes, in case you haven't
that might
read
be
the
a part
book,
of it.
we'll do full spoilers next week in the Zoom meeting. But
and you had another explanation.
yes,
for the
I
title.
actually read an article from The Guardian, which is a British newspaper, about the book, because in the UK it's called The 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle, not the 7.5 deaths. And they changed the title, as they often do when they bring things across the pond. And basically the explanation was that Americans expect more dying. And they wanted to supersize it. So that might be another explanation as well. So the narrator is, we come to find out, not right away, but throughout the chapters in the beginning part of the book, that the soul of this man that keeps getting shoved into other people's bodies, his name is Aidan Bishop. And Aidan Bishop has a backstory that the readers will never know in full, but what do we know about him, and what would you call him a hero? Why or why not?
Yes. So the Aidan that we come to know, even though he doesn't know anything about himself, even though his reason for being there, unbeknownst to him, is steeped in anger, resentment, revenge, that he's still somehow been forged by this experience into a heroic figure. What would you say?
Well, I thought it was interesting. There was one part in the book where after he's been through several of the different bodies that he has inhabited, that he says, I've taken, I've admired Ravencourt's intellect. I've admired, what was Darby? What did he admire about Darby? I'm thinking he admired anything about Darby. Darby was a pretty crappy character.
No, he didn't like Darby.
But he did like Dance's forthrightness and being able to see through people's lies, and he liked the quietness of Sebastian Bell. Mm-hmm. And so he was taking all of these, because they describe in the book that the Aidan Bishop, while he is inhabiting these bodies, his soul is kind of tussling with the soul that he's inhabiting. So sometimes the soul of the person he's inhabiting kind of takes over, and that person's personality traits come out. And the further he goes into the book, the harder it is to resist the urges of the person he's inhabiting. So, I thought that was an interesting point there. Is he a hero? I don't know, because you never really find out the truth about Aidan Bishop and who he is.
Yeah, he did it. He eventually goes through the book, and it feels like he does the right thing for the right reasons. By the end of it.
Yeah. And if we want to go to question 3, the mystery of Blackheath is set up like a puzzle, and the reader plays along with Aidan as he puts the solution together. Blackheath, in one of the other questions that I had found today, was that the construct of Blackheath is a prison, or as a prison feels something like from the future, but do you feel this sort of punishment, impossible redemption, could one day be considered a viable solution for criminals? That's not exactly the question that I wanted to ask, but I wanted to talk about Blackheath Manor in the fact that Aidan Bishop is not the only person who is switching bodies in this particular narrative. There are other souls in there that are trying to find the answer, and it's a race against each other to find out who the killer is. That person who delivers the proof of the killer gets released from Blackheath Manor and the prison that they're all collectively trying to escape.
So to answer the second question first, construct of Blackheath as a prison. According to the author's interviews with the author, he seems to think that this sort of mental prison construct is something that's going to be attainable within the next 100 years or so. And he, according to that interview, he felt like that the outside world, wherever Aidan's going to be returning to at the conclusion, that the outside world is futuristic. It's a world that's using this mental prison construct as punishment for terrible criminals. I don't so much see that as a possibility, although certainly...
Good heavens, I hope not. That sounds horrifying.
VR and virtual reality and augmented reality have progressed quite a long way.
Yes.
But I don't particularly see that as a real punishment
should
solution.
it be used is it to be used like as a rehabilitation, or because basically Aidan is trying to do the right thing in order to get out. So if that's the construct that's set up, then putting a prisoner of the future in there, basically making them do the right thing to get out, it just feels wrong to me.
I mean, what you said, I could just easily be gamed, because I think a lot of people know what the right things...
Right, whether you believe it or not, right, but most people know what the right thing is to do.
Right.
So I don't know if that would be a good rehabilitation. It's interesting that you read that in an interview with the author. What else did he have to say about it?
Those were the two main points as it relates to this question. And it was also that this was an unsolved mystery from the past that they had the ability to go back and recreate. So that's why it feels both antiquated and futuristic,
right?
Because
we're jumping bodies, which is sort of a futuristic type of thing,
right? And it's framed as this Downton Abbey sort of mystery.
Yeah, really.
And then circle back to the first part of the question.
Yes.
Was the puzzle nature of the book.
Right.
So were you able to solve the mystery?
Oh, heavens,
to any
no.
extent? Were there any pieces that didn't make sense to you?
Oh, gosh. I think not so far as didn't make sense. I think that there was just so much packed into it that I'm in a quandary as to whether I can say I liked the book or not, because I did have fun with it.
Yeah.
It was fun to try and go along with the character and just go with it and see where it led. I didn't try too hard to try and work out the mystery as it went along.
Especially since he leaves so much out.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's that's an Agatha Christie-ish move, to be honest with you. I mean, the murder being introduced in the last 5 pages of the book. So
yeah, it's hard to follow a mystery, or let alone solve it, a mystery where somebody does that.
But then I'm not that type of person that does that. I mean, I like to read mysteries and I read a lot of them, and I'm never the kind of person that's trying to solve it as I go along. I just kind of like along for the ride, you know?
Okay, fair enough.
Tell me who did it. I'll be surprised. Yay. Let's talk about, question 4 is no character is ever what they first appear, something Aiden remarks on throughout the novel. Which character resonated with you particularly and why? And were there any characters you changed your opinion about?
So the characters that resonated with me particularly were the intellectual ones, Ravencourt and Dance.
Yes, I agree with that.
I definitely, and then Rashton as well.
The police officer.
How they...
Or the detective.
You know, where the actual detective work took place in those 3 characters. Everybody else was either useless at that or just trying to put pieces together.
Although you did glean some clues from the less intellectual characters, just from observation, and maybe they weren't making the connections, but you could still file that away.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
A piece like from, say, Darby, or Derby, or however you want to say it. The English say Darby. That's how I listened to the book. And it's Evelyn Hardcastle, and it's Jonathan Darby, and whatever. So...
Take that, cultural differences.
Yes.
Whatever.
Okay, but I changed my mind about Ravencourt as I followed along the chapter about him. But I also... the way I changed is that... he was a lot smarter than initially. I mean, basically Ravencourt, Lord Ravencourt, who is a banker, he is an extremely fat man, and he needs help getting in and out of the bathtub, walking downstairs. He gets out of breath easily. He can barely heave himself out of his chair. But he's got a mind that is working constantly, and it works in conjunction with Aiden Bishop. And I really like the relationship that Aiden Bishop has with Lord Ravencourt's valet. I thought that was really funny because he actually tells the valet, who's named Cunningham, that, you know, he's not Lord Ravencourt, he's some other guy who's stuck in his body. And for some reason, Cunningham goes along with it, which is like,
well,
okay.
He was blackmailed into it.
Well, yeah, he was blackmailed into it, but I think he believed it by the end.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what characters other than that?
Something that I really liked was how different people interacted with the Aiden differently based on how they felt about his hosts.
Yes.
So he gets a real affection for Evelyn after waking up in Belle's body, because Evelyn is such a friend to Belle. I'm not sure if that was ever explained or gone into.
Yeah, I think she took pity on him, honestly. I don't think they knew each other that well, but she seemed to have a sympathetic nature towards him, and that was the first body that he inhabited. So, of course, through the book, he feels this kinship with Evelyn, even though the rest of his hosts she doesn't particularly like.
Right.
So she doesn't treat any of them very nicely.
And the only other character that really comes in to contact with multiple of his hosts, aside from his on-again, off-again friend Anna, and the devious Daniel, the gambler.
Yes, the gambler, yes.
What's his last name?
What is his last name? It's Coleridge.
Coleridge, yeah.
Yeah.
Daniel Coleridge. Then the only other one is I lost it.
That's okay. But let's talk about the two characters, or the three characters actually, that are not mentioned in the list of characters that come up in the beginning of the book. We have the mysterious Anna, who Sebastian Bell wakes up shouting her name.
Mm-hmm.
We have the plague doctor, and if you don't know what a plague doctor looks like, this is a plague doctor. I don't know if you can see it very well, but it is a something that came from Venice during the years of the plague in the Middle Ages, and they wore these bird-like masks that they would shove herbs and spices into the nose of the mask so they wouldn't be breathing in the putrid fumes of the plague victims. But they would wear usually this whole getup with the hat, the long robe, the gloves, and the long pokey stick. So that was a real thing, and it's odd that the plague doctor would come up in a time when we're going through a pandemic, but there you go.
You chose the book.
I did choose the book. I didn't know there was a plague doctor in it. I didn't know. Anyway, but then we also have the third character, who is the footman, and the footman is out to kill everybody.
Yep.
Especially Aiden, Bishop, and Anna.
Yep. So that adds an element of danger to,
Yes.
and the stalking to all of Aiden's transactions.
Mm-hmm.
So the footman, just a nameless, almost faceless assassin who's.
I mean, there are so many servants in the house that Aiden Bishop is kind of not. He knows that there are lots of footmen. It could be any of them, and until he gets a description later on, he has no idea which one is the killer. But he's after both Aiden Bishop and Anna, and they both work hard to keep out of his way.
And then there's so Anna and the plague doctor, and they're all weird, cryptic characters that we don't have any backstory to.
No, we don't.
Or hardly any context for their actions in the play.
No, that's true. That's true.
And there's another character who's very important to the story, but doesn't show up in the list, and that's Felicity Maddox.
Ah, Felicity Maddox, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. She is described as an old friend of Evelyn Hardcastle, and we find out later on that she's not who we think she is.
Right.
Dun dun dun.
More next week.
More next week on that, yes.
Yeah, come talk to us, and we'll get you a Zoom login.
Yes, we'll get you a Zoom login. So, do you think that there was one host that was the most important, the most that he gleaned the most information from?
Rashton,
obviously, yes, because he was the detective.
Yeah, he all but solved everything, and then had to wait around for another day.
Right, yes. And then he kept coming back to the poor butler. The butler was the second body that he was shoved into. And the poor butler was beaten nearly to death. And so the butler keeps becoming unconscious. But you get a full day in each body. So after he would finish with like the third body, he would come back to the butler for a little while until he fell unconscious again. And then you go away to the next body, and then you come back to the butler. And that was...
What a weird rule.
What a strange way to put that together. If they had made a movie of this, how do you think they would do it? I mean, especially with the point of view. Because you couldn't see, I mean, I don't know. Would it be like through the camera's eyes, do you think? Or would it be showing the person, like starting with Sebastian Bell waking up in the forest and seeing him waking up in the forest?
I think you would see him. So I spent no small amount of time thinking about this.
I'm sure you didn't.
And kind of figured that the best way to do it would be some sort of visual cue to tell us when the person's waking up that this is the same person as the last one.
To be honest with you, I think this would work much better as a miniseries because there's so much packed into it. I don't think you could get this book done in a 2-hour movie or even a 2.5-hour movie.
Groundhog Day.
Groundhog Day, yes, but Groundhog Day is so much more simplistic than this book.
I think this would be doable as a movie.
Okay.
Probably, if we did a miniseries, that would certainly give you more time to explore
Does
the
that
day.
mean you want to start working on a script?
So yeah,
Okay,
we're
going to work on a script.
Watch for it early next year.
We'll see if we can get HBO interested. Or maybe even Hulu. They're doing stuff now too. All right. Let's see.
Yeah. So then to the last question.
Okay. If this were made into a movie, which we were just talking about, who would you want to play the various roles?
Well, okay, so I only came up with one myself, and it's really the name that gave it to me. But Edward Dance would definitely be played by Charles Dance.
Charles Dance, of course.
Obviously.
Yes.
Like the role was, I think the role was written for him.
I think you're right. I think you're right.
It's the same name and everything. But is an older guy, proud.
I was thinking of maybe Robbie Coltrane for Lord Ravencourt.
Okay.
You know, big guy, but they could put him more fat on him because he's not. I mean, he's just a big guy, you know. But I could see him doing the part of him very well. Anna, she's described as what, blonde?
I don't even remember
Young,
descriptions for any
blonde,
of the people.
I think
except
brown
for
eyes. Maybe one of the
approximate ages.
Fannings, Dakota or Elle.
Okay. Yeah, somebody with an innocent look, so that.
Yes. So when her betrayal comes,
right.
it's not. It's quite much more of a shock.
So somebody that Aiden can really want to save.
And have a sort of maybe not a romantic relationship, but at least have some sort of camaraderie with. Trying to think. Cunningham could be one of the nameless rabble of young, good-looking men right now.
So he inhabited several people who were kind of all just vaguely young and attractive.
Yes.
Rashton,
Yes.
Davies, Derby was probably like superficially young and attractive, but he would have to be somebody more sinister.
Yes.
Yeah.
What about Evelyn or Evelyn?
Which one?
The one that we think is Evelyn through the entire book. I see her. Well, they talk about her being, an angular face. I could see Saoirse Ronan playing her.
Oh, that'd be really good.
Yeah. I think she would do a good job in that. She'd
Yeah.
be about the right age and the right look. And she's a fabulous actress, so she could pull it off.
Yeah, that would be a great choice.
Thank you. Okay, so
you're on casting.
Let's start making a list. Yes. Okay. Very good. Is there any other thing you want to talk about that's burning in you?
Let's talk about Anna.
Okay, let's talk
no
about
relation.
Anna. No relation.
What was up with her? What do you think she did?
Well, yeah, I mean, they talk about her being somebody, a really, really bad person. That's what the plague doctor said, right?
Right.
Yeah, that she had been in charge of laying waste to half of Europe, I think. Maybe she was Hitler. I don't know.
Something like that.
Yeah. I mean, really, really bad person.
Right.
In this,
half the world hates her.
Yes. So, but they said, if she goes back to her body, she should just start running. right?
Mm-hmm. Well,
okay. Or
I imagine she's...
shoot yourself, I guess, if
Yeah.
she was Hitler.
I imagine she's like... Well, she probably still has allies, wherever that is, whatever that looks like. It's just a really hard concept to grasp, and nothing about it is explained.
Right.
But
You're left
do you
with
think
a
she's...
lot of questions.
Do you think she was redeemed, or do you think that was an act?
Well, that's the thing we were talking about before. If you put a criminal in a situation where they have to do the right thing, they'll know what the right thing is, whether or not they agree with it, and they can probably get it accomplished regardless of what they feel inside. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know.
I kind of felt like if...
I liked her. I wanted her to be a good person.
And I kind of feel like if she wasn't redeemed, we would have had like another couple of pages
Yeah, yeah.
where she stabbed him in the back again.
Right.
And, you know, his folly was fully revealed to him.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we kind of went into spoiler territory, but
Sorry.
yeah, you wouldn't be watching this if you didn't want to read it, right?
Right. Exactly.
So yeah, that's what I got for you.
All right, that's what I got for you. Okay, so we will be seeing you next week in a Zoom meeting, and we will get your thoughts, get your take on what you thought of this crazy, convoluted mystery. So thank you for joining us, and I'll say goodbye for me.
See you later. Hope to see you at the meeting.
Okay, bye.